Hi, I'm Tommy Martinez, and I'm 7. Most kids my age just think about stuff like homework or if we can watch cartoons after dinner. But a few months ago, something really big happened. I had to keep my baby sister Emma safe. All by myself, when our house caught fire at 2 a.m. on a cold October night. Everyone thought we were both gone. The flames had already swallowed the staircase, and the smoke was so thick you couldn't see your own hand. But I wasn't going to let my little sister die. Not Emma, who giggled every time I made funny faces, who held my finger when she was scared, while the fire department searched through the wreckage thinking they'd find 2 small bodies. I was already 4 miles away, carrying my 18-month-old sister through the darkness toward help. They called it a miracle. I call it what big brothers do. If you've ever had to protect someone you love, you'll understand why I did what seemed impossible. My family wasn't rich, but we were rich in love. That's what Mama always said when she tucked me into bed at night. Papa worked construction, getting up before the sun to build houses for other families. His hands were always rough and calloused, but they were the gentlest hands in the world when he helped me with my homework or when he held Emma during her bedtime bottle. Mama worked part-time at the grocery store, but her real job was taking care of us. She made the best pancakes on Saturday mornings, shaped like Mickey Mouse ears that made Emma clap her tiny hands. Our house on Maple Street wasn't the biggest on the block, but it was ours. 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, and a kitchen where we all gathered for dinner every night at 6 o'clock. Sharped up, the family photo from last Christmas still sat on our mantel. We were all wearing matching red sweaters that Mama bought on sale after Thanksgiving. Papa's got his arm around Mama, and I'm holding baby Emma, who's trying to grab the camera with her chubby fingers. We look so happy, so complete. I remember that day because it was the first Christmas Emma was old enough to unwrap presents. Even though she was more interested in eating the wrapping paper than seeing what was inside, everything changed when Emma was born. Not in a bad way, but in a way that made me understand what it meant to be a big brother. The day Mama and Papa brought her home from the hospital, Papa sat me down on the couch and said, "Tommy, you're going to be Emma's protector now. That's what big brothers do." I was only 5 then, but I understood. When other kids at school complained about their little brothers and sisters, I never did. Emma was my responsibility, my little shadow who followed me everywhere on her wobbly legs. Our daily routine was simple but perfect. Every morning at 7, Mama would wake me up for school. While I got dressed, she'd get Emma ready for the day. Papa would already be gone to work, but he always left a note in my lunchbox telling me to have a good day and to help Mama with Emma. After school, I'd rush home to play with Emma. She loved when I made funny faces or when I read her picture books in different voices. Her favorite was about a little bunny who went on adventures. Bedtime was our special time. After Papa got home and we had dinner, Mama would give Emma her bath while I did my homework. Then we'd all gather in Emma's room. Papa would read a story, and I'd help Emma say goodnight to all her stuffed animals. She had a whole collection, but her favorite was a pink bunny that Abuela had given her. Emma couldn't sleep without that bunny. "Bunny," she'd say in her little voice, holding it tight against her chest. It was one of her first words, and it made us all so proud. She'd look at me with those big brown eyes and smile, and I'd promise her that I'd always be there to keep her safe. I meant it then, and I mean it now. Our house was filled with the sounds of family. Emma's giggles echoing down the hallway, Mama singing while she cooked, Papa's heavy footsteps on the front porch. After work, the smell of Mama's cooking, the sight of Emma's toys scattered across the living room floor, the feeling of being exactly where we belonged. None of us knew that our perfect little world was about to change forever. October 15th started like any other day, but now I remember every detail like it was painted in my mind forever. The leaves on our maple tree in the front yard had turned the most beautiful shade of orange, and Emma loved pointing at them from her high chair during breakfast. "Tree, tree," she'd squeal, clapping her hands together. Mama made spaghetti for dinner that night, Emma's favorite. Well, Emma's favorite thing was making a mess with spaghetti, getting more sauce on her face than in her mouth. I helped clean her up afterward while Mama and Papa did the dishes. Papa was telling us about his day at the construction site, how they were building a new playground for the elementary school. Maybe someday Emma will play on the swings I'm building, he said, ruffling her hair. Emma giggled and tried to grab his finger, which she always did when she was happy. After dinner, I had math homework to finish. Multiplication tables, which I was still struggling with. Papa sat next to me at the kitchen table, patiently helping me work through the problems while Mama gave Emma her bath. I could hear Emma splashing in the tub and Mama laughing. No, Emma, the water stays in the tub, not on Mama. When homework was done, it was time for Emma's bedtime routine. This was my favorite part of every day. I'd go into Emma's room where Mama had already put her in her pajamas, the pink ones, with little elephants that made her look even tinier than she was. Emma would toddle over to her toy box and carefully select which stuffed animals needed to sleep with her that night. She always chose her pink bunny first. That bunny had been her constant companion since she was 6 months old. Abuela had bought it for her first Easter, and Emma had claimed it immediately. The bunny was getting worn from all of Emma's love. One ear was a little flattened, and the pink fur wasn't as bright as it used to be. But Emma didn't care. "Bunny," she'd whisper, holding it close. That night, I sat in the rocking chair next to her crib while Papa read from her favorite book about the little bunny who couldn't sleep. Emma stood in her crib, holding onto the rails, watching Papa's face as he changed his voice for each character. When he got to the part where the bunny's mama sings a lullaby, Emma started swaying back and forth, humming along in her own little tune. "Tommy's turn," Papa said, closing the book and handing it to me. This was our tradition. Papa would read the story, and then I'd tell Emma my own version, usually about a brave little bunny who went on adventures with her big brother bunny. "Once upon a time," I began, "there was a little bunny named Emma who lived in a cozy burrow with her big brother bunny Tommy." Emma's eyes got wide, and she smiled. She loved when she was the star of the story. One day, Emma Bunny wanted to explore the big meadow, but it looked scary and dark. But Tommy Bunny said, "Don't worry, Emma, I'll always protect you." Big brother bunnies never let anything happen to their little sisters. Emma clutched her bunny tighter and made a soft cooing sound. She was getting sleepy, her eyelids starting to droop. I finished the story with Emma Bunny and Tommy Bunny safely back in their burrow, and Emma was already lying down in her crib, thumb in her mouth, bunny under her arm. Mama and Papa kissed her goodnight, and then it was just me and Emma. "Good night, little sister," I whispered. "Sweet dreams." She looked up at me with those trusting eyes and made a little sound that I knew meant good night in Emma language. Later that evening, after I'd brushed my teeth and put on my pajamas, I could hear Mama and Papa talking quietly in the kitchen. They were discussing money, which they did sometimes when they thought I couldn't hear. Something about the car needing repairs and Christmas coming up. But their voices weren't angry or scared, just the way grown-ups talk when they're figuring things out together. I fell asleep that night feeling completely safe and loved, with no idea that in just a few hours, everything would change forever. I woke up because something smelled wrong. At first, I thought I was dreaming. In my sleep-fuzzy brain, I thought maybe Mama was cooking breakfast early, but the smell wasn't like bacon or pancakes. It was sharp and bitter, like when Papa burned leaves in the backyard, but stronger and scarier. My room was darker than usual. The glow-in-the-dark stars that Papa had stuck to my ceiling last year were still shining their soft green light. But something felt different. The air felt thick, like trying to breathe through a blanket. I sat up in bed, rubbing my eyes, trying to figure out what was wrong. That's when I heard Emma crying. Emma didn't usually cry at night anymore. She'd been sleeping through the night for months, and when she did wake up, it was just little whimpers that went away on their own. But this crying was different, scared and desperate. The way she cried when she fell down or when a loud noise startled her. I threw off my covers and ran to my bedroom door. When I opened it, a wall of black smoke hit me in the face, making me cough and gasp. The hallway that I walked through every day. The hallway with family pictures on the walls and the squeaky floorboard by the bathroom was filled with thick, choking darkness. "Mama, Papa," I called out, but my voice came out as a croak. The smoke burned my throat and made my eyes water instantly. I couldn't see anything except the faint orange glow coming from downstairs, and that's when I realized what the glow meant. Fire. Our house was on fire. My heart started beating so fast, I thought it might jump out of my chest. I'd never been so scared in my entire life. Every fire safety lesson from school came flooding back. Stay low, get out fast, call 911. But Emma was still crying, and her room was at the other end of the hall, past the staircase where the orange glow was getting brighter. "Mama, Papa," I yelled again, louder this time, but there was no answer. Their bedroom door was closed, and I couldn't see through the smoke to know if they were okay. Part of me wanted to run to them first, but Emma's crying was getting more desperate, more frightened. I dropped to my hands and knees like they taught us in school. The air was a little clearer down low, but not much. I started crawling toward Emma's room, feeling my way along the wall because I couldn't see more than a few inches in front of me. The carpet felt hot under my hands, and the smoke was making me dizzy. Emma's crying was the only thing guiding me through the darkness. "I'm coming, Emma," I called out, though I didn't know if she could hear me over her own scared sobs. "Big Brother's coming." The hallway felt like it went on forever. Usually, it only took a few seconds to walk from my room to Emma's, but crawling through smoke and darkness made everything feel different, scarier, bigger. The family pictures on the walls, all those happy memories were invisible now, hidden behind the thick black smoke. When I finally reached Emma's doorway, I could see the orange glow was much brighter here. The fire was somewhere downstairs, but it was growing, spreading, filling our house with this poisonous darkness. Emma was standing in her crib, gripping the rails, crying harder than I'd ever heard her cry. Her face was red and streaked with tears, and she was coughing between sobs. "Tommy," she managed to say when she saw me. It wasn't perfect. She usually said Tommy, but I understood. She reached her little arms toward me, trusting me to make everything okay. I stood up, ignoring how the smoke made me feel sick and dizzy. Looking at Emma's frightened face, I felt something change inside me. The fear was still there, but it wasn't the biggest thing anymore. The biggest thing was knowing that my little sister needed me, and I was the only one who could help her. "It's okay, Emma," I said, trying to make my voice sound calm and strong like Papa's. "Tommy's here. I'm going to get you out of here." But even as I said it, I could hear the fire getting louder downstairs, crackling and hissing like some monster that was eating our house. And I had no idea how we were going to escape. I climbed into Emma's crib and scooped her up in my arms. She was heavier than I remembered, but her familiar weight against my chest made me feel stronger somehow. She buried her face in my shoulder, still crying, but quieter now that I was holding her. Her little fist clutched my pajama shirt like she was afraid I might disappear. "We have to go, Emma," I whispered into her ear. "We're going on an adventure, okay? Like the bunny stories. But first, I needed to grab some things." I couldn't think clearly through the fear and smoke, but some part of my brain knew we might need stuff. I reached into Emma's crib and grabbed her pink bunny, tucking it under my arm. Emma saw the bunny and made a little sound of relief, reaching for it with one hand while keeping the other wrapped around my neck. The smoke was getting thicker, and I could hear new sounds from downstairs, crackling, popping, and something that sounded like glass breaking. We needed to get out of the house, but I couldn't go back through the hallway. The orange glow was brighter now, which meant the fire was spreading. Papa's heavy flashlight was on Emma's changing table. He'd left it there last week when the power went out during a storm, and he used it to change Emma's diaper. I grabbed it with my free hand, thinking Papa's strength was somehow in that flashlight, that it would help me be as brave as he was. I had to get to Mama and Papa's room. But when I looked toward the hallway, I could see flames licking at the top of the staircase. The fire had reached the second floor. My stomach dropped as I realized what this meant. The main staircase was blocked. We couldn't get downstairs the normal way. Mama, Papa. I screamed as loud as I could, hoping they would hear me, hoping they were okay. But there was no answer, just the terrible sound of the fire eating our house. Emma was coughing more now, and I realized I was too. The smoke was making it hard to breathe, hard to think. I needed to get Emma outside where the air was clean, but how? We were on the second floor, and the only way down was through fire. That's when I remembered something. Last summer, Papa had talked about putting up a fire escape ladder in case of emergency, but he never got around to buying one. In an emergency, he'd said, you could always use the window in Emma's room. It's right above the back porch roof. The window, Emma's bedroom window, faced the backyard, and there was a small roof below it where the back porch extended from the kitchen. If I could get us out the window and onto that roof, maybe we could climb down from there. I stumbled to the window, still carrying Emma, and tried to open it. My hands were shaking, and the flashlight made it hard to grip the window latch. The window was stuck. It hadn't been opened in months, maybe longer. I set the flashlight down and tried using both hands, but it wouldn't budge. Emma was getting heavier in my arms, and she was still coughing. I could see in the flashlight beam that her face was getting red from the smoke. We were running out of time. Come on, I muttered, trying the window again. This time, I braced my feet against the wall and pulled as hard as I could. With a loud squeak, the window finally opened, and cool night air rushed in. It was the most beautiful feeling in the world. Clean air that didn't burn my lungs or make my eyes water. I stuck my head out the window and looked down. The porch roof was about 6 feet below us, slanted but not too steep. In the distance, I could see lights in other houses. People who were safe and asleep, people who didn't know our house was burning down behind us. I could hear the fire getting louder, angrier. Emma's room was starting to fill with smoke despite the open window. We had to go now. I tucked Emma's bunny into the front of my pajama shirt, then picked up Mama's rosary beads from Emma's dresser. Mama always said those beads kept us safe, and I figured we needed all the protection we could get. The beads were warm in my hand, and holding them made me feel like Mama was somehow with us. Okay, Emma, I said, looking into her scared eyes. We're going out the window now. Hold on tight to Tommy. Emma's arms tightened around my neck. She didn't understand what was happening, but she trusted me completely. That trust was both the most wonderful and the most terrifying thing I'd ever felt. Getting out of the window while carrying Emma was the hardest thing I'd ever tried to do. I had to sit on the windowsill with Emma in my lap, then carefully turn around so I could lower myself feet first onto the porch roof. My arms were shaking from Emma's weight and from fear, but I couldn't let go. Don't look down, Emma, I whispered, even though she probably couldn't understand. I was talking to myself as much as to her. Just hold on to Tommy. The porch roof was slippery with dew and fallen leaves, and it was steeper than it looked from inside. I had to move very slowly, testing each step before putting my full weight down. Emma was quiet now, sensing how carefully we had to move. Her little arms were wrapped so tightly around my neck that it was hard to breathe, but I didn't care. As long as she was holding on, she was safe. When we reached the edge of the porch roof, I looked down at the backyard. It seemed so far down, even though it was probably only 8 or 9 feet. In the darkness, I could see Papa's old ladder leaning against the side of the house, but it was too far away for me to reach. I was going to have to jump. The thought terrified me. What if I landed wrong? What if I hurt Emma? But behind us, I could see the glow from the fire getting brighter in Emma's window. Orange light was dancing on the walls of her room now. We couldn't go back. I sat down on the edge of the roof, holding Emma tight against my chest. We're going to jump now, Emma. It's going to be like flying, okay? Like in the bunny stories when they hop really high. Emma made a little sound and buried her face in my shoulder. I think she knew we were doing something scary, but she trusted me to keep her safe. I pushed off from the roof, trying to land on my feet in the soft grass below, but the ground was harder than I expected, and we both tumbled when we hit. I made sure to twist my body so that I landed first, cushioning Emma. From the impact, pain shot through my shoulder and hip, but Emma seemed okay. She was crying again, but it was more from fear than hurt. "We did it, Emma," I said, trying to sound happy and excited even though my whole body ached. "We flew like bunnies." I looked back at our house, and what I saw made my stomach drop. Flames were visible in the downstairs windows now, and smoke was pouring out of every opening. The fire had spread so fast, it seemed like the whole first floor was burning. "Mama, Papa," I screamed, but there was no sign of them, no movement in their bedroom window, no voices calling back to us. Where were they? Were they trapped inside? Were they... I couldn't finish that thought. Then I heard it, sirens in the distance, getting closer. Someone must have seen the fire and called for help. Relief flooded through me until I realized something terrible. The fire trucks were still far away, and Mama and Papa might not have that much time, but I couldn't help them. I was just a 7-year-old boy with a baby sister to protect. The most important thing was getting Emma somewhere safe. And then I could figure out how to help Mama and Papa. Emma was shivering in the cool October air. Her pajamas were thin, and she wasn't wearing shoes or socks. I wasn't either, and the grass was cold and wet under my bare feet. We needed to get somewhere warm, somewhere safe. I thought about running to the neighbors' houses, but all the lights were off. It would take time to wake people up, time to explain what was happening. Emma needed help now, and I knew exactly where to take her. Abuela's house was 4 miles away, on the other side of town. It was a long walk, even for a grown-up, and I'd never walked there by myself. But Abuela would know what to do. She'd take care of Emma, and she'd help me figure out how to save Mama and Papa. I picked Emma up again, wrapping her bunny in my arms with her. She was calmer now that we were away from the smoke, but she was so tired. Her head rested heavily on my shoulder, and I could feel her little body relaxing against mine. "We're going to see Abuela," I told her as I started walking toward the street. "Remember Abuela? She makes those cookies you love, and she has that rocking chair where she sings to you." Emma made a soft sound that might have been Abuela, though it was hard to tell. Behind us, the sirens were getting louder, and I could see the glow from the fire reflecting off the clouds. Our whole world was burning, but Emma was safe in my arms. That was what mattered most. I was her big brother, and I was going to get her to safety no matter what it took. The walk to Abuela's house was going to be the longest journey of my life, but I was ready. I had to be. The sound of sirens filled the night air, getting louder and closer until I could see the flashing red and blue lights reflecting off the trees. The fire trucks were coming, and for a moment I felt hope rushing through my chest. They would save Mama and Papa. They would put out the fire. Everything would be okay. But as I stood there in our front yard, holding Emma and watching our house burn, I realized something that made my heart feel like it was breaking. I couldn't see Mama and Papa anywhere. Their bedroom window was dark except for the terrible orange glow that seemed to be everywhere now. The front door, where Papa came home from work every day, was blocked by flames. "Mama," Emma said quietly, looking toward the house. Even at 18 months old, she seemed to understand that something was very wrong. "Mama and Papa are going to be okay," I told her, though I wasn't sure if I believed it myself. "The firefighters are coming to help them." My digital watch, the one Papa gave me for my 7th birthday, had stopped working when we jumped from the roof. The display was cracked, and it was stuck at 2:47 a.m. That number seemed important somehow, like it marked the exact moment when our old life ended and this scary new world began. The first fire truck rounded the corner onto Maple Street, its lights painting everything in flashing red and blue. I wanted to run toward it, to tell them about Mama and Papa, but Emma was getting heavier in my arms, and I knew I couldn't wait. The firefighters would find Mama and Papa, they had to. But Emma needed me to get her somewhere safe right now. Started walking away from our burning house, away from the sirens and the chaos. Every step felt wrong, like I was abandoning Mama and Papa when they might need me. But what could I do? I was just a little kid, and Emma was my responsibility. Where go? Emma asked, her words muffled against my shoulder. We're going to Abuela's house, I said. Remember the way Mama drives us there? We're going to walk that same way. I knew the route because I always paid attention when we drove to visit Abuela. Down Maple Street to the big intersection, then left on Oak Avenue for a long stretch, then right on Pine Street, and finally Abuela's little white house with the blue shutters on Elm Court. I'd never walked it before, but I'd watched out the car window dozens of times. Emma's tiny shoes kept slipping off her feet. They were just soft fabric slippers, not meant for walking outside, and they were too big anyway. I tried to keep them on, but after the third time, I had to stop and pick up a shoe from the sidewalk. I just took them both off and tucked them into my pajama pocket. Emma's feet were so small and cold against my arms. The neighborhood was eerily quiet except for the distant sound of sirens behind us. All the houses were dark, their families safe and asleep, unaware that just a few blocks away, 2 children were walking alone through the night. Streetlights created pools of yellow light every few hundred feet, but between them, the darkness felt huge and scary. I talked to Emma as we walked, partly to keep her calm and partly to make myself feel less alone. Remember Abuela's cookies, the ones with cinnamon that she makes specially for you, and her rocking chair with the soft cushion. She's going to rock you to sleep, and everything will be better in the morning. Emma was getting drowsy, which made her heavier but also quieter. Her head bobbed against my shoulder with each step, and sometimes she'd make little sleepy sounds. Her bunny was getting damp from the dew in the air, but she held onto it tightly. Even while half-dash asleep, my arms were starting to ache from carrying her, but I didn't dare put her down. The sidewalk was cold and wet, and she was already shivering. Besides, she trusted me to carry her, to keep her safe. I couldn't let her down now. As we reached the end of our street, I turned back one more time to look at our house. The fire seemed smaller now, maybe because the fire trucks were there, but I could still see the orange glow against the night sky. I whispered a prayer, holding Mama's rosary beads tight in my pocket. Please keep Mama and Papa safe. Please let the firefighters save them. And please help me get Emma to Abuela's house. Then I turned away from everything I'd ever known and started the longest walk of my life. The first intersection seemed to take forever to reach. My legs were already tired, and Emma felt like she was getting heavier with every step. I knew the route to Abuela's house by heart, down Maple Street, left on Oak Avenue, right on Pine Street, then Abuela's house on Elm Court. I'd watched Mama drive it so many times, counting the turns, memorizing the landmarks. But walking, it was completely different from riding in the car. Everything looked strange and scary in the darkness. Houses that seemed friendly and normal during the day looked like sleeping giants with their dark windows staring down at us. The streetlights helped, but they also created long shadows that made me jump every time a tree branch moved in the wind. Emma was being so good, even though I knew she had to be scared and confused. She'd wake up every few minutes and lift her head to look around, then settle back against my shoulder. Sometimes she'd whisper Tommy or Bunny, and I'd whisper back that everything was okay, that we were almost there. Even though we'd barely started, her weight was making my arms ache, in a way I'd never felt before. When I carried her around the house, it was just for a few minutes, from the living room to her bedroom, or from her high chair to the bathtub. But now I'd been carrying her for what felt like hours, and we still had so far to go. I tried switching positions, holding her different ways to give my arms a break. Sometimes I'd carry her facing forward so she could see where we were going. Other times I'd hold her sideways like a football, though she didn't like that as much. The bunny made it even more awkward. It was almost as big as Emma, and she refused to let go of it. Abuela makes the best hot chocolate, I told Emma as we walked down a particularly dark stretch of sidewalk. Remember how she always puts those little marshmallows in it? And she lets you help stir it with the big wooden spoon. Emma made a happy sound at the mention of hot chocolate. She loved going to Abuela's house because Abuela spoiled her in all the best ways. Abuela would let Emma play with her jewelry box, the one with the tiny ballerina that spun around when you opened it. She'd sing old Spanish songs that made Emma clap her hands, and she always had a cookie jar filled with treats that she'd let Emma reach into with her tiny fingers. The thought of Abuela made me walk faster, even though my legs were getting wobbly from exhaustion. Abuela would know what to do. She'd call the police and the fire department to check on Mama and Papa. She'd wrap Emma in warm blankets and make sure she was okay. She'd take care of everything because that's what grandmothers do. But Oak Avenue was still so far away, and Emma was getting restless. She kept trying to wiggle out of my arms, not understanding why we couldn't just stop and play. Her little shoes had fallen out of my pocket somewhere, and I was worried her feet were getting too cold. I stopped under a streetlight and tried to rub her feet warm with my hands. "Cold," Emma said, one of her clearer words. "I know, baby sister. We'll be warm soon. Abuela has lots of blankets." I started singing to her as we walked, the same lullabies that Mama sang at bedtime. My voice was shaky and probably off-key, but Emma seemed to like it. She'd hum along sometimes, making up her own little tune that mixed with mine. A car drove past us, its headlights sweeping across the sidewalk. For a moment, I thought about flagging it down, asking for help. But Papa had always taught me never to talk to strangers. And besides, how would I explain what we were doing out here in the middle of the night? The car disappeared around a corner, leaving us alone again. The hardest part wasn't the walking or even Emma's weight. The hardest part was the worry that kept growing in my chest like a cold, heavy rock. What if Mama and Papa weren't okay? What if the fire was too strong for the firefighters? What if I was walking Emma toward a world where we were all alone? But I pushed those thoughts away. I had to be strong for Emma. She was counting on me to get her to safety, and I wasn't going to let her down. Big brothers don't give up, no matter how tired they get or how scared they feel. "Almost there, Emma," I whispered. "Though we weren't even close. Tommy's going to take care of you." Asterisk. By the time we'd been walking for what felt like forever, my whole body was aching. My arms felt like they were on fire from carrying Emma. My legs were wobbly and weak, and my bare feet were numb from the cold pavement. But Emma was depending on me, so I kept going. I found a discarded newspaper blowing around in the wind near a bus stop. The headline was something about local heroes, though I couldn't read all the big words in the darkness. But I could make out the picture, a firefighter carrying a child to safety. Something about that image gave me strength. If that firefighter could save someone, maybe I could save Emma too. Emma was getting fussier now. She'd been so good for so long, but she was tired and cold and confused. She kept trying to get down from my arms, pointing at things she wanted to investigate: a cat running across the street, a colorful sign in a store window, anything that looked interesting to her toddler eyes. "No, Emma, we have to keep walking," I'd tell her, redirecting her attention. "Look, there's a pretty streetlight. Count with Tommy. 1, 2, 3, Sometimes counting worked. Sometimes singing worked. Sometimes I had to stop and let her stand on the sidewalk for a minute, just to stretch her legs and feel like she had some control. But I never let go of her hand, and I never let her get too far from me. The worst part was when she started asking for Mama and Papa. "Mama," she'd say, looking around like she expected them to appear. "Papa." Her little voice was so hopeful, so trusting, that it made my throat tight with tears. I was trying not to cry. "Mama and Papa are coming later," I told her, which wasn't exactly a lie. I hoped it wasn't a lie. Right now, it's just Tommy and Emma on an adventure. I had to get creative about carrying her. My arms were so tired that I couldn't hold her the normal way anymore. I tried piggyback, but she was too little to hold on properly. I tried carrying her sideways, but that made it hard to see where I was going. Finally, I figured out that if I held her against my chest with one arm and supported her bottom with the other arm, I could manage for longer periods. We passed a small playground about halfway to the first major intersection, and Emma got very excited. "Swings," she said, pointing and wiggling in my arms. She loved swings more than anything, and normally I would have been happy to push her for hours, but not tonight. We'll swing another day, I promised her. Right now we're going to see Abuela. I sat down on one of the swings for just a minute, needing a break so badly that my legs were shaking. Emma climbed into my lap, and I rocked the swing gently back and forth. For a moment, it felt almost normal, like we were just playing at the park on a regular day. But then I remembered the fire, the smoke, the terrible orange glow in our windows, and I knew we had to keep moving. Emma protested when I stood up, reaching back toward the swings, but I distracted her by pointing at a dog walking with its owner across the street. "Doggy," Emma said happily, waving her little hand. The simple joy in her voice reminded me why I was doing this. Emma still believed the world was a good place where big brothers could fix anything and adventures always had happy endings. I was going to make sure she was right. As we continued walking, I started telling Emma stories to keep both of us going. I made up new adventures for the bunny from her favorite book, stories where the bunny and her big brother went on long journeys to visit their grandmother, Bunny. And the little bunny was very brave, I said as we walked past a row of sleeping houses. Even when the journey was long and hard, she held on to her brother Bunny and trusted him to keep her safe. Emma listened to every word, sometimes adding her own sound effects or trying to repeat words she recognized. Her attention to my stories helped distract her from being tired and cold, and telling the stories helped distract me from how much my whole body hurt. By the time we reached Oak Avenue, the main road that would take us most of the way to Abuela's house, I felt like we'd been walking for days instead of just 1 mile. But seeing that familiar street sign gave me hope. We were really doing this. We were going to make it to Abuela's house, and she was going to help us figure out everything else. Emma had fallen asleep against my shoulder, her bunny clutched tight in her little fist. She felt heavier when she was asleep, but at least she wasn't asking to get down or trying to explore everything we passed. The rhythmic sound of her breathing in my ear was actually comforting, proof that she was okay, that I was keeping her safe. "Just 3 more miles, Emma," I whispered. "Tommy's got you." Oak Avenue stretched out in front of us like the longest road in the world. It was the main street that led toward Abuela's side of town, but it was also the hardest part of the journey. There were fewer streetlights, more distance between safe places, and my energy was running out fast. Emma woke up about 20 minutes into Oak Avenue, confused about where we were. She looked around at the unfamiliar surroundings and started to whimper. "Home?" she asked, her voice small and scared. "We're going to Abuela's home," I told her, but she shook her head. "No, home, Mama home." I didn't know how to explain to an 18-month-old that our home was gone, that Mama and Papa might be. I couldn't even think it. Instead, I distracted her by pointing out things we passed: a colorful mailbox, a cat sitting in a window, a flag fluttering in someone's yard. But Emma was getting more upset as we walked. She wanted down, she wanted Mama, she wanted to go back to familiar things. I was running out of ways to comfort her, and my own fear was getting bigger. What if I was making a terrible mistake? What if I should have stayed near our house and waited for help? What if Mama and Papa were looking for us right now? That's when we came to the old playground near the middle school. It was bigger than the first playground we'd passed, with tall swings and a complicated climbing structure that looked like a castle in the darkness. One swing was moving slightly in the wind, creaking back and forth with a lonely sound. I was so tired that I had to stop. My legs felt like rubber, and my arms were trembling from Emma's weight. I sat down on that moving swing, settling Emma in my lap. And for the first time since we left our burning house, I let myself feel how scared I really was. "I don't know if I can do this, Emma," I whispered into her hair. "I'm just a little kid too. What if I can't get us there? What if I'm not strong enough?" Emma looked up at me with those big, trusting eyes. "Tommy," she said, and patted my cheek with her tiny hand. Then she pointed at her bunny and made it hop on my leg. Hop, hop, hop. She was trying to cheer me up. My baby sister, who was scared and tired and cold, was trying to make me feel better. That's when I realized something important. I wasn't just carrying Emma to safety, she was helping me be brave enough to get there. I looked at the swing set around us, remembering how Papa had pushed me on swings when I was Emma's age. He'd taught me to pump my legs to go higher, told me I could fly if I believed I could. "You're stronger than you think, mijo," he always said. "The Martinez family doesn't give up." Papa was right. I was stronger than I thought. I'd already gotten us out of a burning house, climbed out a window, walked more than a mile in the dark. Emma believed I could do this, and that made me believe it too. "Okay, Emma," I said, standing up from the swing. "Let's go see Abuela. She's going to be so happy to see us." Emma clapped her hands, and I started walking again, but something had changed during our rest on the swing. I wasn't just a scared little boy carrying his sister anymore. I was a big brother doing what big brothers do, protecting their families no matter what it takes. The rest of Oak Avenue didn't seem quite so long after that. We still had to stop several times for me to rest my arms and for Emma to stretch her legs, but I felt more confident with each step. When cars passed us, I wasn't scared anymore. When dogs barked from behind fences, I told Emma they were just saying hello. When the street lights were far apart and the darkness felt heavy, I sang louder to fill up the scary silence. "We're going to make it," I told Emma as we reached the end of Oak Avenue. "Tommy promised to get you to Abuela, and Tommy keeps his promises." Emma smiled and made a sound that might have been promise, though with her it was hard to tell. But I knew she understood. She always understood the important things. The turn onto Pine Street brought us into a part of town I didn't know as well. The houses were farther apart here, with bigger yards and taller trees that blocked out some of the streetlights. It was darker, quieter, and somehow felt more dangerous even though nothing bad was actually happening. Emma was getting cranky again. She'd been so patient for so long, but she was still just a baby, and this was way past her bedtime. She kept trying to squirm out of my arms, and when I wouldn't let her down, she'd cry in frustration. Her cries echoed in the quiet night, making me worry that someone would come outside to see what was wrong. "Emma, we have to be quiet," I whispered, but that just made her cry harder. She didn't understand why we couldn't stop, why we couldn't go home, why Mama and Papa weren't here to make everything better. My arms felt like they were going to fall off. I'd been carrying Emma for hours now, and she seemed to get heavier with every step. My shoulders ached, my back hurt, and my legs were so wobbly that I was afraid I might fall down. But I couldn't give up. We were more than halfway to a house now. We'd come too far to stop. I found a fallen tree branch by the side of the road, about as tall as me, and sturdy enough to lean on. I picked it up with one hand while balancing Emma with the other, and it helped me walk more steadily. The branch became like a walking stick that helped support some of my weight when I got tired. "Look, Emma," I said, trying to make it sound fun. "Tommy found a magic walking stick, like in the fairy tales." Emma stopped crying for a moment to examine the branch. She reached out to touch it, and I let her hold on to one end while I held the other. For a little while, it felt like we were both carrying the stick together, like she was helping me walk just as much as I was helping her get to safety. But Pine Street seemed to go on forever. Every time I thought we might be getting close to Elm Court, we'd pass another block with no sign of Abuela's neighborhood. My feet were so cold I couldn't feel them anymore, and I was starting to stumble more often. Emma noticed and patted my cheek worriedly. "Tommy, tired?" she asked. "A little bit tired," I admitted. "But Tommy's okay. We're almost there." That's when Emma did something that made my heart feel warm despite everything else. She leaned her head against my shoulder and started humming one of the lullabies Mama always sang. Her little voice was sweet and soft, and hearing that familiar tune made me feel like Mama was somehow with us, giving us strength to keep going. I started thinking about Mama and Papa while we walked, wondering if they were okay, if the firefighters had saved them. I tried to picture them safe somewhere, maybe at the hospital, getting checked out. Maybe at a neighbor's house, worried sick. About Emma and me, they had to be okay. I couldn't imagine a world where they weren't. When we get to Abuela's, I told Emma. The first thing we're going to do is call Mama and Papa. They're probably so worried about us. And then Abuela will make you some warm milk, and will wrap you up in her softest blanket. Emma perked up at the mention of warm milk. Milk, she said hopefully. Yes, warm milk with a little bit of honey, just like Abuela always makes for you. The promise of warm milk and Abuela's blankets seemed to give Emma a second wind. She stopped fussing and started looking around with interest again, like she was helping me watch for landmarks. Sometimes she'd point at things and name them in her baby language: kitty for any small animal we saw, light for the streetlights, big for the larger houses we passed. We were both getting better at this journey. I'd learned how to shift Emma's weight to give my arms breaks, how to use the walking stick for support, how to pace myself so I wouldn't get too tired all at once. Emma had learned to hold on better, to stay calm when she got scared, to trust that her big brother would take care of everything. When we finally saw the street sign for Elm Court, I felt like crying with relief. Look, Emma, that's Abuela's street. We did it. Emma clapped her hands and said something that sounded like Bula, which was her way of saying, Abuela. We were almost there. After miles of walking through the dark, carrying more weight than I'd ever thought possible, staying brave when everything felt scary and impossible, we were almost at safety. Just a few more blocks, and Abuela would take care of everything. The sky was starting to change color as we walked down Elm Court. Instead of the deep black it had been all night, there were hints of dark blue and purple creeping in around the edges. Dawn was still a while away, but the first signs of morning were beginning to show, and it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. Emma noticed it too. She pointed up at the sky and said, light, in her excited voice. After hours of darkness, even this tiny bit of change felt like a miracle. The streetlights didn't seem as important now that we could make out the shapes of houses and trees without them. The sun is coming up, Emma, I told her. Morning is coming, and everything looks better in the morning. I could hear birds starting to chirp in the trees, the first sounds of the world waking up. It was still very early, probably around 5 in the morning, but knowing that other people would be getting up soon made me feel less alone. The night had been so long and dark and scary. But we'd made it through. Emma was more alert now that there was light to see by. She kept pointing at things and naming them, happy to recognize familiar sights as we got closer to Abuela's neighborhood. Treehouse, car, she'd announced like she was helping me navigate. My whole body still ached from carrying her so far. But the growing daylight gave me energy I didn't know I had left. We were going to make it. We were really going to make it to Abuela's house. And then everything would be okay. The first light filtering through the trees made everything look softer, more hopeful. The houses didn't seem scary anymore. They just looked like places where families lived, where children were sleeping safely in their beds. A few windows had lights on now, people getting ready for work or making morning coffee. When a jogger passed us, going the other way, she smiled and waved. Early morning adventure, she called out cheerfully. We're going to see our grandmother, I called back, which was true even if it wasn't the whole story. Emma waved at the jogger enthusiastically. Hi, she said, thrilled to see another person after our long night alone. The jogger's friendly greeting made me feel more normal, like maybe we weren't so strange after all. Maybe we just looked like a big brother taking his little sister for an early morning walk. Maybe no one could tell just by looking at us that we'd escaped from a fire, that we'd been walking for hours, that our whole world had changed in one terrible night. As we got closer to Abuela's house, I started recognizing more landmarks. There was the corner store where Abuela sometimes bought Emma's special treats. There was the bus stop where we'd wait sometimes when Mama picked us up after visits. There was the big oak tree that Emma always wanted to touch when we walked past. Oak tree, I said, pointing it out to Emma. Remember the oak tree? We're almost to Abuela's. Emma reached out toward the tree as we passed, like she was saying hello to an old friend. Her excitement was growing too. She could sense that we were almost somewhere, safe and familiar. The morning air was cool and fresh, so different from the hot, smoky air we'd escaped from hours ago. I took deep breaths, filling my lungs with clean air, grateful that Emma could breathe easily again. Her little cheeks were pink from the cool air, but she didn't seem cold anymore. If anything, she seemed energized by the approaching dawn. "Tommy strong," Emma said suddenly, patting my chest with her small hand. "Emma strong too," I told her. We both did something very brave tonight, and it was true. Emma had been incredibly brave for such a little person. She'd trusted me completely, let me carry her for miles without knowing where we were going or why. She'd stayed calm when she could have been crying the whole time. She'd helped me be brave by being brave herself. The sun was really starting to come up now, painting the sky in soft pink and orange colors. After the terrible orange glow of the fire, these warm sunrise colors felt like a promise that good things were coming. Light was winning over darkness. Morning was here, and we'd survived the night. Abuela's neighborhood looked exactly the same as always. And that familiarity was like a warm hug after our long, scary journey. The small houses with their neat front yards, the mailboxes I recognized, the sidewalk cracks I'd stepped over dozens of times, everything was where it should be. Unchanged by our terrible night. Emma was getting excited now. She knew where we were, and she kept pointing at things. She remembered Bula House. She asked every time we passed a house that looked similar to our grandmother's. "Almost there, baby sister. Just a little bit more." My arms were shaking from exhaustion, and my legs felt like they might give out any second, but knowing we were so close gave me the strength to keep going. Emma seemed lighter somehow. Maybe because I was so relieved, or maybe because she was helping by holding on tighter, making it easier for me to carry her. That's when I heard them. Abuela's wind chimes. She had beautiful silver wind chimes hanging on her front porch that made the most gentle, musical sound when the breeze moved them. I'd always loved that sound, but I'd never been so happy to hear it as I was right then. It meant we were almost home. Chimes, Emma said happily. She remembered them too. Abuela always let Emma try to make music with the chimes when we visited, holding Emma up so she could reach them with her tiny fingers. The sound of those chimes was like a beacon guiding us home. Every step brought the music closer, clearer, more beautiful. It was the sound of safety, of love, of finally reaching the end of our impossible journey. My heart was beating fast, but not from fear anymore, from excitement, from relief. From the incredible realization that I'd actually done it. I'd carried my baby sister for miles through the night to safety. When I started this journey, I wasn't even sure I could make it to the end of our street. Now we were almost at Abuela's front door. Emma was practically bouncing in my arms now, recognizing more and more familiar sights. She pointed at a neighbor's red car, at the fence where a friendly dog always barked hello. At the lamppost where Abuela had hung flower baskets last spring. "We did it, Emma," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. We actually did it. The walking stick that had helped me for the last mile wasn't needed anymore. I was running on pure determination now, carried forward by the knowledge that safety was just around the corner. Emma must have sensed my excitement because she started clapping her hands and making happy sounds. When we turned the final corner onto Abuela's street, I could see her little white house with the blue shutters. It looked exactly the same as always, the flower boxes under the windows, the ceramic frog by the front steps, the porch light that she always left on. Everything was peaceful and normal and perfect. Emma saw it too. "Bula House," she said clearly, pointing with both hands. "Yes, that's Abuela's house. We made it." The last few steps felt like floating. After walking for hours, after my whole body screaming with exhaustion, after carrying Emma farther than I'd ever imagined possible, we were finally there. I could see Abuela's wooden cross hanging above the front door, the one she'd had for as long as I could remember. Papa always said that cross protected everyone who entered Abuela's house, and right now I believed it completely. We were about to be under its protection. Safe at last. Emma was trying to get down now, eager to explore Abuela's familiar porch. but I held on to her tightly. We were so close, but we weren't quite safe yet. Not until Abuela opened that door and wrapped us both in one of her famous hugs. I climbed the 3 steps to Abuela's front porch, my legs shaking with exhaustion and relief. The wind chimes played their gentle song overhead, welcoming us home. Emma reached up toward them, remembering how much fun they were to play with. We'd walked 4 miles through the darkness, escaped from a fire, survived the longest night of our lives. Now we were standing on Abuela's doorstep, and all I had to do was knock. I knocked on Abuela's door as loud as I could, my small fist pounding against the familiar blue wood. Emma helped by clapping her hands, both of us making as much noise as possible. It was still very early in the morning, and I knew Abuela would be sleeping, but this was an emergency. Abuela, Abuela, it's Tommy and Emma, I called out, my voice cracking with exhaustion and emotion. It took a few minutes, but finally I heard movement inside the house. Footsteps, then Abuela's voice calling out in Spanish, asking who was there. When I called back that it was us, I heard the sound I'd been waiting for all night. The chain lock rattling, the deadbolt turning, and then the door swinging open. Abuela stood there in her pink bathrobe and slippers, her gray hair messy from sleep, blinking in confusion at the sight of us on her doorstep. For a moment, she just stared like she couldn't believe what she was seeing. Dios mío, she whispered, which means my God in Spanish. Tommy, Emma, what are you doing here? Where are your parents? That's when I finally broke down. All the fear and exhaustion and worry I'd been holding back for hours came pouring out in a flood of tears. Abuela, our house caught fire. Mama and Papa, ... I don't know if they're okay. I got Emma out and I carried her here because I didn't know what else to do. Abuela didn't waste any time asking more questions. She immediately scooped Emma out of my arms and pulled me inside, both of us wrapped in the biggest, warmest hug I'd ever felt. Her house smelled like the cinnamon cookies she was always baking and the lavender soap she used, smells that meant love and safety and home. You brave, brave boy, she said, tears running down her cheeks as she looked at both of us. You saved your sister. You brought her home to Abuela. Emma was clinging to Abuela now, babbling excitedly in her mixture of real words and baby talk. Bula bula, Tommy, Carrie. Walk, walk, walk. She was trying to tell Abuela about our adventure, pointing back toward the door to show her the direction we'd come from. Abuela set Emma down just long enough to look us both over, checking for injuries. My feet were cut and dirty from walking barefoot on the pavement. Emma's pajamas were damp and dirty, and she was shivering despite the warm morning air. But we were both okay, tired and scared, but okay. First, we get you both warm and fed, Abuela said, switching into the take charge mode that all grandmothers seem to have. Then we call the police and find out about your mama and papa. She wrapped Emma in a soft yellow blanket and sat her in the familiar rocking chair by the window. Emma immediately relaxed, recognizing the chair where Abuela had rocked her to sleep during so many visits. Abuela gave Emma her favorite sippy cup filled with warm milk, and Emma drank it like she hadn't had anything in days. Then Abuela turned to me. She cleaned the cuts on my feet with gentle hands, put bandages on the worst ones, and wrapped me in the biggest, softest blanket she had. The warmth felt incredible after being cold for so many hours. Now, she said, sitting down next to me and taking my hands in hers, tell Abuela everything that happened. So I did. I told her about waking up to the smell of smoke, about finding Emma's room full of fire, about climbing out the window and carrying Emma all those miles in the dark. Abuela listened to every word, her eyes wide with amazement and worry. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Then she stood up and walked to the telephone, her fingers shaking as she dialed 911, double quotes. Yes, this is Maria Santos on Elm Court, she said into the phone. I have my grandson and granddaughter here. Their house caught fire tonight. Yes, they're safe, ... No, we don't know about the parents yet. Please, Can you tell me what happened at the house on Maple Street? Emma and I sat together in the rocking chair while Abuela talked to the emergency operator. Emma was getting sleepy now that she was warm and safe, her head resting against my shoulder just like it had for the entire walk. But she was still clutching her pink bunny, the one companion who'd made the whole journey with us. Above us, the wooden cross watched over our reunion, just like it had watched over everyone who'd ever found safety in Abuela's house. The phone call seemed to last forever. I watched Abuela's face carefully, trying to read her expressions to understand what was happening. Sometimes she nodded, sometimes she asked questions in Spanish. Sometimes she looked worried, and sometimes she looked relieved. Emma had fallen asleep in my arms, exhausted from our long journey, but I was wide awake, waiting to hear about Mama and Papa. Finally, Abuela hung up the phone and came back to us. Her face was serious, but I could see something that looked like relief in her eyes. Your Mama and Papa are alive, she said, and I felt like I could breathe again for the first time in hours. They're in the hospital, but they're going to be okay. They have some smoke inhalation and your Papa has a burn on his arm, but the doctors say they'll be fine. I started crying again, but this time it was from relief and happiness instead of fear. Mama and Papa were okay. We were all going to be okay. The firefighters said something very important, Abuela continued, sitting down next to me. They said that if you hadn't gotten Emma out when you did, if you had waited even a few more minutes, you both might not have made it. You saved your sister's life. Within an hour, Abuela's quiet house was full of people. First came the paramedics to check Emma and me for smoke inhalation and injuries. They were amazed that we'd walked 4 miles in the dark without getting seriously hurt. They put a plastic hospital bracelet on my wrist that said my name and birth date, marking me as a patient who needed to be monitored. Then came the police officers who wanted to hear my story again. They kept shaking their heads in amazement, saying they'd never heard of a 7-year-old doing anything so brave. One of them, Officer Martinez, no relation to us, but he said the shared name made us familia, told me I was a hero. I'm not a hero, I told him. I'm just a big brother. Sometimes, Officer Martinez said, those are the same thing. The fire chief came too, a big man with kind eyes who smelled like smoke. He explained what had happened to our house. An electrical fire had started in the basement while we were all sleeping. It spread faster than anyone expected, blocking the main staircase before Mama and Papa could get to us. Your parents tried to reach you, he said gently. But the stairs were already on fire. They had to escape through their bedroom window, and they were calling your names, trying to find you. They thought... He paused, looking sad. They thought you didn't make it out. I couldn't imagine how scared Mama and Papa must have been, thinking Emma and I were trapped in the fire. But we weren't trapped. We were safe. Because sometimes little boys can do big things when they have to. The hospital wanted to keep me overnight, for observation, because I'd breathed in some smoke. But I didn't want to leave Emma. Abuela solved the problem by insisting that Emma stay with me. Both of us in the same hospital room where doctors could make sure we were completely okay. That evening, reporters came to the hospital wanting to talk to me. They called me a miracle child and a local hero, but all their attention made me uncomfortable. I didn't feel like a hero. I felt like a regular kid who'd done what any big brother would do. One reporter asked me if I was scared during the walk to Abuela's house. Yes, I admitted. But Emma needed me to be brave, so I was brave. What would you say to other children who might face an emergency? Another reporter asked. Take care of your little brothers and sisters, I said. And remember that you're stronger than you think you are. By the time visiting hours ended, Emma and I were both wearing matching hospital bracelets and eating Jell-O cups that the nurses brought us. Emma thought the bracelets were jewelry and kept trying to show hers to everyone who came in the room. Bracelet, she'd announce proudly, holding up her tiny wrist. As we settled in for the night. Safe and warm and clean for the first time since the fire. I thought about everything that had happened. Our house was gone, but our family was together. We'd lost everything we owned, but we hadn't lost each other. And somehow, that made me feel like we were still the luckiest family in the world. The reunion with Mama and Papa happened the next morning in the hospital. When they wheeled Papa into our room, his arm wrapped in bandages, and Mama walking beside him with an oxygen tank, I thought my heart might explode from happiness. "Tommy, Emma," Mama cried, rushing to our bed as fast as she could with the tank. She gathered us both in her arms, careful not to disturb the wires the doctors had attached to monitor us. Papa's eyes were red and watery, and not just from the smoke. "We thought we lost you," he said, his voice rough and emotional. "When we couldn't find you in the house, when the firefighters couldn't find you, we thought our babies were gone. Tommy saved me," Emma announced proudly, even though most adults wouldn't have understood her toddler pronunciation. She pointed at me and then at herself. "Tommy, carry Emma. Walk, walk, walk." Mama and Papa listened in amazement as I told them about our journey, how I'd gotten Emma out through the window, how we'd walked for miles in the dark, how Emma had been so brave and trusting the whole time. They kept looking at each other like they couldn't believe their 7-year-old son had done something so incredible. "You walked 4 miles, Papa said, shaking his head. "Tommy, I can barely carry Emma for blocks when we go to the park. I had to," I said simply. "She's my little sister." The next few days brought more attention than our family had ever experienced. The local fire department presented me with an honorary junior firefighter badge during a ceremony at the hospital. Fire Chief Rodriguez said I'd shown the same courage and quick thinking that they trained their firefighters to have. "This badge doesn't make you a firefighter," he explained as he pinned it to my hospital gown. "You already were one when you saved your sister's life." The badge was shiny and official looking, with my name engraved on the bottom. Emma was fascinated by it, constantly reaching over to touch the shiny metal and saying, "Tommy badge." Local news stations wanted to interview our family, and suddenly our story was on television and in newspapers. People from all over the city were calling us heroes, sending cards and gifts, offering to help us rebuild our lives. It was overwhelming and wonderful and embarrassing all at the same time. But the attention that meant the most to me came from other kids. Children from my school came to visit, bringing drawings they'd made of me carrying Emma to safety. One girl in my class, Sarah, brought a picture she'd drawn of me with a cape like a superhero. "You're like Superman," she said, "except you're real." Kids I'd never met sent letters telling me I was their hero, that they wanted to be brave like me if they ever had to protect their little brothers and sisters. Teachers read our story to their classes as an example of courage and family love. Emma loved all the attention. She charmed every visitor with her bright smile and her excited babbling about our big walk and Tommy Strong. She didn't understand that what we'd done was unusual to her. It was just another adventure with her big brother. The community response was incredible. People donated clothes, toys, and furniture to help us start over. A local construction company offered to help Papa rebuild our house. The grocery store where Mama worked started a fund to help with our expenses. But what amazed me most was how many people said our story inspired them. Parents told their children about the boy who saved his sister, teaching them about responsibility and courage. Families talked about emergency plans and making sure everyone knew how to stay safe. "You've reminded people what's really important," one visitor told Papa. "Not the things we own, but the people we love." Emma and I were released from the hospital after 3 days, both of us completely healthy despite our ordeal. As we prepared to go stay with Abuela, while our parents recovered and we figured out what came next, I realized something important had changed. I was still the same Tommy who liked cartoons and struggled with multiplication tables. But now I was also Tommy who'd carried his sister for miles to safety. Tommy who'd made impossible decisions in the dark. Tommy who'd discovered he was braver and stronger than he'd ever imagined. Emma was still the same giggling, curious toddler who loved her pink bunny and wanted to touch everything she saw. But now she was also Emma who'd trusted her big brother completely. Emma who'd been brave in the darkness. Emma, who'd survived something that would be part of our family story forever. Asterisk. Living at Abuela's house while our parents recovered, and we figured out our next steps was different from anything we'd experienced before. Abuela's house was smaller than ours had been, but somehow it felt like there was room for all of us. She cleared out her sewing room to make space for Emma's crib and my sleeping bag. And suddenly we were a household of 5, instead of her usual quiet home for 1. Emma adapted to the change better than any of us expected. She loved having Abuela's constant attention, and Abuela loved having a baby to spoil again. Every morning, Emma would wake up calling Bula, Bula, and toddle out to the kitchen where Abuela would be making coffee and humming old Spanish songs. For me, the adjustment was harder. Everything felt different. The sounds of the house, the way the light came through different windows, the fact that I had to share a room with Emma instead of having my own space. But what was hardest was that I felt different to Dot at school. Kids looked at me with a new kind of respect that I wasn't used to. Teachers spoke to me more seriously, like I was older than I actually was. Friends asked me to tell the story of our escape over and over, and each time I told it, it felt more like something that had happened to someone else instead of something I'd actually done. Do you feel like a hero now? My friend Marcus asked me during lunch one day. I feel like a big brother, I said, which was true. The hero stuff felt too big, too important for a regular kid like me, but being a big brother, that felt exactly right. Emma, meanwhile, seemed completely unaffected by all the attention our story had received. She played with her toys, chased Abuela's cat around the house, and demanded stories before bedtime just like always. The only sign that she remembered our night journey was the way she'd sometimes point toward the front door and say, "Tommy, walk Emma," like she was telling Abuela about our adventure. Mama and Papa were getting stronger every day. Papa's arm was healing well, and both of them were breathing normally again. But they were different too, in ways that were hard to describe. They hugged us more often, watched us more carefully, and seemed to appreciate ordinary moments in a way they hadn't before. Every morning when I wake up and see you two safe and healthy, Mama told me one evening, I remember what really matters. We took a new family photo at Abuela's house about a month after the fire. In it, we were all crowded together on Abuela's small couch, squished together but smiling. Papa's arm is still in the sling, and you can see the edge of my honorary firefighter badge pinned to my shirt. Emma is holding her pink bunny, which had been cleaned and restuffed by a kind lady from the community center. Abuela is in the middle, beaming like the proud grandmother she was. The photo was different from our old Christmas picture in important ways. We looked a little tired, a little worn, but also stronger somehow, like we'd been through something that proved we could handle whatever came next. Insurance money and community donations meant we could start looking for a new house, but Papa wanted to take his time finding the right place. Home isn't about the building, he said. It's about the family inside it. As long as we're together, we're home. Emma was growing and changing every day, like toddlers do. She was walking more steadily, saying new words, becoming more independent. But she still reached for me when she was scared, still wanted me to read her bedtime stories, still looked at me like I could fix anything that went wrong. The bond between us had grown stronger during our night journey, but it had also become more natural, more easy. I no longer worried constantly about protecting her because I knew that if something bad happened, we'd figure it out together. She no longer clung to me desperately because she trusted that I'd always be there when she needed me at school. My teacher, Mrs. Johnson, started a unit about heroes in our community, and she used our story as an example. But she was careful too, explained that heroes aren't just people who do one dramatic thing, they're people who take care of each other every day. Tommy is a hero, she told the class, but he was already a hero before the fire, just by being a good big brother. The fire just gave him a chance to show everyone what families already knew. That felt right to me. I hadn't become someone different the night of the fire. I'd just become more myself, more the big brother I'd always wanted to be. 3 months after the fire, I started keeping a journal. Mrs. Johnson suggested it as a way to process everything that had happened. And at first I wasn't sure what to write. But once I started, the words came easily. October 15th changed everything. I wrote on the first page, but it also didn't change anything important. We're still the Martinez family. We still love each other. We still eat dinner together and tell bedtime stories and help each other when things get scary. Writing about that night helped me understand things I hadn't understood before. I realized that I wasn't the only hero in our story. Emma was a hero too, for trusting me completely when everything was dark and scary. Mama and Papa were heroes, for surviving the fire and for raising me to know that family comes first. Abuela was a hero for taking us in and helping us heal. The firefighters were heroes for risking their lives to save our parents. Everyone in our story was brave in their own way. Emma was talking more now, and sometimes she'd surprise us with what she remembered about our night journey. One evening, while Abuela was making dinner, Emma pointed out the kitchen window toward the direction of our old house and said, "Tommy, carry Emma. Long walk. Not scared?" "You weren't scared?" Abuela asked. Amazed. Emma shook her head seriously. Tommy, with Emma, safe. That might have been the moment I finally understood what had really happened that night. I thought I was saving Emma, carrying her to safety, protecting her from danger, but she was saving me too. Her trust made me brave. Her need made me strong. Her presence made the impossible journey possible. We saved each other. I wrote in my journal that night. The community recognition continued for months. I was invited to speak at fire safety assemblies at other schools, where I'd tell kids about the importance of having an escape plan and staying calm in emergencies. Emma would sometimes come with me, charming audiences by waving and saying, "Hi everybody," in her clear little voice. But the recognition that meant the most came on a quiet Tuesday evening in December. Emma had been playing with her blocks on Abuela's living room floor when she suddenly stood up, walked over to where I was doing homework, and climbed into my lap. "Tommy hero," she said clearly, patting my cheek with her small hand. Those were two of her clearest words yet, and hearing them made my heart feel like it might burst with love and pride. Not because she called me a hero, but because she said it with such simple certainty, like it was just a fact about the world that everyone should know. "Emma a hero too," I told her, and she giggled like I'd said something silly. By spring, we'd moved into a new house, bigger than our old one, with better smoke detectors and a fire escape ladder in each bedroom. Emma had her own room again, but she still wanted me to read her bedtime stories every night. Her favorite was still the bunny book. But now I'd add new adventures where the brave little bunny and her big brother explored new places and always took care of each other. The pink bunny that had made the journey with us held a place of honor on Emma's new bookshelf. It was more worn than ever, one ear completely flat now, and the pink fur faded to almost white in places. But Emma still slept with it every night. And sometimes I'd catch her whispering to it, telling it secrets or stories about her day. On the anniversary of the fire, our family went back to visit the lot where our old house had stood. Papa was planning to sell the land, to many difficult memories, he said. But I wanted to see it one more time. The lot was empty, except for the concrete foundation and the old oak tree in the backyard that had somehow survived the fire. Emma ran straight to the tree, hugging its trunk like she was greeting an old friend. "Our tree," she announced happily. "Yes," I agreed. "Our tree, standing there in the place where our old life had ended and our new life had begun." I felt grateful for everything, the scary parts and the happy parts, the losses and the gains, the night that changed us and the family that stayed the same. Emma took my hand as we walked back to our car, trusting me to guide her just like she had on that dark October night. But now I understood that we'd always been guiding each other. That's what families do. "Tommy," Emma said as Papa buckled her into her car seat. "Yes, Emma." She smiled her brightest smile and said the words that I'll remember for the rest of my life. "Tommy, best big brother in whole world." I was 7 years old when I learned that ordinary kids can do extraordinary things when someone they love needs them to. I was 7 years old when I discovered that being a hero isn't about being the strongest or the bravest or the smartest. It's about refusing to give up on the people who matter most. Most importantly, I was 7 years old when I learned that sometimes the best adventures are the ones that bring you safely home.